Total Sports Zone. All sports, all action, one zone.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are taking a very careful look at the known facts surrounding the tragic plane crash in North Carolina that involved former NASCAR driver Greg Biffle and his family. We're going to stick to the official information that's been released so far, as the investigation is still very much active.
So let's start with the essential details, the things we know for sure. A private flight departed from Statesville Regional Airport, but tragically it crashed just moments later. Now, because this incident involved such a well-known public figure, it has, of course, become the focus of a major official investigation.
All right, to get the clearest possible picture, we're going to break this explainer down into 4 parts. We'll start with the incident itself, then try to reconstruct the flight's final moments using the communications we have. After that, we'll look at some of the clues that are emerging and be really careful to separate those from speculation. And finally, we'll talk about the official investigation that's happening right now.
Okay, first up, let's just lay out the foundational details. What kind of plane are we talking about and who was on board?
So the aircraft was a Cessna C550, and it was on its way to Florida. There were 7 people on board: Greg Biffle, his wife Christina, and their 2 children, plus 3 other individuals. The flight ended just minutes after it began, while the pilots were trying to make an emergency return back to the airport. Now, let's try to piece together that timeline. By looking at the official reports and the audio that's been released, we can start to get a sense of what was happening in the air during those incredibly critical final moments. What's really striking here is just how fast this all unfolded. The plane takes off, and only about 10 minutes later, the pilots are on the radio reporting trouble. They make 2 left turns to circle back, but the plane went down at 10:15 a.m. during its final approach. It's also interesting that they were aiming for a different runway than the one they took off from. That could be a key detail for the investigators. And this is the first piece of direct evidence we have from inside that cockpit. In this recently released audio, you can hear the pilot telling air traffic control they're having a rough engine. It's the first real confirmation that there was some kind of mechanical problem happening on board. And then in this follow-up transmission, you can hear the crew actively trying to manage the emergency. The pilot says they're getting the landing gear down and that they're lining up for the runway. It really shows a calm, by-the-book response in an absolutely dire situation, as they were fighting to get that plane back on the ground safely. Okay, in any developing story like this, it's so important to separate what we know from what people think might have happened. So let's look at a couple of key bits of information that have come out and see how they fit into the bigger picture. So, on top of the cockpit audio, another communication has surfaced, a simple text message that just says, "Emergency landing." Investigators have confirmed it came from someone on the plane, which gives us this very rare and pretty chilling glimpse into what might have been happening back in the passenger cabin. As of now, we don't know who sent it. Now, since the pilot mentioned a rough engine, some experts have started offering their own theories. Here we have former NASCAR driver Kenny Wallace, who speculates that maybe the plane lost an engine. He suggests that with the extra drag from the landing gear and the flaps being down, the plane just might not have enough power to make it all the way back to the runway. And this brings us to an absolutely critical point. While Kenny Wallace's theory sounds logical and it's based on his experience, it is still just that. Speculation. It is not an official finding. Only the formal investigation can piece together the definitive chain of events. So, that leads us right to the investigation itself. How exactly will officials get the definitive answers they need to truly understand what caused this tragedy? Well, the key to pretty much every modern aviation investigation is what we all call the black boxes. Now, these are actually 2 different things. There's the flight data recorder, which logs tons of data about how the plane is performing. And then there's the cockpit voice recorder, which, as you can guess, records all the audio from the flight deck. And here we have a really crucial development. It's been confirmed that one of the flight recorders from the Cessna has been recovered from the crash site. It's already been sent to the National Transportation Safety Board's labs in Washington, D.C., where the experts are going to start that very long, careful process of analyzing it. The NTSB, the agency that leads these investigations, follows a super rigorous process. It always starts with securing the scene and documenting all the wreckage. Then they move on to recovering key evidence, like those flight recorders. And finally, all the evidence, everything from maintenance records to witness statements to the data from the black box, it all gets analyzed before they publish their official findings and a probable cause. And that really brings us to the ultimate goal of all of this. Of course, providing answers for the families is the most important thing, but the findings from this will also be used to try and improve aviation safety for all of us. The question isn't just what happened, but what can we learn from it to help prevent it from ever happening again? We'll continue to keep you updated on this story as the NTSB releases its official reports.